but I'm
Sorry about that.
delighted to be back. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different and give you a sampler. Two of the three special exhibitions at the moment are focusing on female artists, which I think is rather unusual here. So I want to talk about both those shows and then give you just a little sampler of other artists that you might see in the galleries, people you may know, you may not know. I don't think any of these are household names, okay, but they're all exciting. The material is different, and I hope it'll kind of spark your interest. We'll look at photographers and ceramic artists and sculptors and printmakers and mixed media artists. And I am guessing if I had to have you name a female artist, who would you, what name would you give?
Georgia O'Keeffe.
Everyone would say Georgia O'Keeffe.
Minna Resnick.
Oh, Minna Resnick, yes. Not as many. Everybody would say Georgia O'Keeffe, and many would say Minna Resnick. And I bet people might say Mary Cassatt. They might Nevilleson. But beyond that, you're going to think, well, now who am I going to mention next? These are artists, again, all fascinating. You may or may not know them, but for us, they are great go-tos for our teaching. And that teaching is, of course, with college students. Some of it is K-12, but a great piece is a great piece. And I will show you some of our very, very favorites today. And we will go far beyond Georgia O'Keeffe today. So first artist is, okay, we're going to go forward. Okay, is Hayabusa. And I don't know if anybody knows her artwork. She is a sculptor and a painter and a printmaker. And we are looking at the artist, of course, on the right. We are looking at her artwork in the Johnson, which is now on floor 2L at the moment, called When Thoughts Collide. And she is a fascinating character for many, many reasons. She works in her studio, she says, typically in jeans and heavy work boots, but I'm not quite sure how she manages this. She also likes a sculptural head wrap, which you can hear, which has, I think, also connections to Yoruba art and textiles. She says of herself, I sculpt myself every day. And I thought, what an interesting idea. Can you see on the left the material that she uses in her artwork? She favors one material above all, and this is what she uses in her sculpture. Can you see what it is?
It looks like rubber.
Bike tire.
Tires. It's tires. She said she was inspired to explore tires when she was just walking the streets of New York in the 1980s, and then just seeing, you know, little discarded strips of rubber littering the kind of the landscape. And she thought, I can do something with this. I can sculpt with it. So the tires have so many layers and levels of meaning. The tires are a way to literally upcycle, recycle, reuse. But she says even better for her are all the layers and levels of associations with a tire. She said it's perfect for, this is not a huge piece, but it's, I don't know, maybe like this, bigger than a head. But they're perfect for huge, large scale sculptural public artworks, things that are outside, of course, because obviously they're very durable, flexible, they're versatile. There's also something very organic. And this is, again, favorite teaching piece. Doesn't matter if it's college or fourth grade, because it's so evocative. And you look at it and think, what in the world? Younger kids find this a little, I think, a little off-putting, but older are beginning to kind of decipher the face within it. And of course, this perfect title, When Thoughts Collide. And college students, of course, think, well, that's me in a stressful time period. So it's a really, really rich piece. What she does is, and this is, again, very heavy duty work, she slices and twists and weaves and kind of rivets these tires to create these forms that, again, seem to be, they seem to have a sense of motion. They're very kinetic, and they have a sense of life, I think, too. For her, the tones of the rubber, too, are very evocative. she says, again, that in the artist's words, those tones of the different tires for her parallel human diversity and human skin tones. And also the age of skin, is it supple? Is it young? Is it mottled? Also, she likes the idea that this connects to traditional patterns of, in different cultures, facial scarification and textile designs. So you think of something as simple as, oh, discarded tire, but think about the layers and the levels of complexity and association that she sees in that discarded bit of tire. And I love, again, it's a great piece for working with any class. And in fact, I loved a 5th grader last week said, well, I think it's all about transportation. And I thought, well, in a way, yes, it is about transportation. It is about movement and movement of lines and energy. And also, again, I think it transports us as well. And I think she makes us consider this kind of lowly little strip of tire on the side of the road, but that it can be transformed into something really magical. So this is the one in our collection, but let me show you. This is obviously a huge piece. Again, she does a lot of just very, very monumental work, outdoor and indoor, but it gives you a sense too of the energy, the kind of the vibrance of it, and that it does seem to be in motion. And again, all tires, all rubber. And again, with her, another sculpted headdress, which I love. Let me show you another one that's outdoors. Again, there is a sense that the works really are growing and moving and changing before our very eyes. So that is Shakaya Booker. Again, one of our favorites, and I hope maybe a new artist to some of you. This is Marisol Escobar. She is a Venezuelan American sculptor and a printmaker from a very well-to-do and well-connected family. Some of you may remember her work. She was very, very popular during the pop art movement. And some of you may remember, again, these were, shows that would have packed people in, cover of Time magazine, this kind of thing. After her mother took her life, Marisol Escobar was shipped off to boarding school and then actually rarely spoke into her early 20s. She then, again, was interested in art. She went to New York. She took classes with Hans Hofmann at the Art Students League and experimented with abstract expressionism, but that was not to be her thing. She really became part of the pop art movement and got the attention of Andy Warhol, among others, and really is known for what we can see here on the right side of the screen, these almost, I don't know, totemic sculptures. She begins sculpture in 1954 and is influenced very much by pre-Columbian art and folk art. And what you see are very, again, big, blocky bodies, in which you can see the kind of the grain of the wood, and then sculptural heads on top of the bodies. And I would say every important major figure of the 60s, whether they were in politics or in the world of entertainment or movies or whatever pop culture, she did a sculpture of them. So there are famous pieces of JFK and Jackie and LBJ and Hugh Hefner, you name it, she did a sculpture of them. And they're just fascinating. And the biggest collection of her work, believe it or not, is in Buffalo at the Albright Knox, and they're having a big show of her work coming up. This is one of the pieces in our collection just called Kiss. It's a cast resin piece and an interesting kind of almost like a triple portrait. And it's illuminated too. I don't know if you can see there's a little light within it. So it's really, again, talking about portraiture and identity and masks. This piece is just such a winner and so fascinating. And also just that idea that there's light within it, I think is, something that's a big hit with Marisol. Wish we had some of those blocky wooden sculptures, but we don't have any of those. But we do have a big suite of lithographs. And this is just 3 of a suite of 6. These are up on the first floor of the museum at the moment. And again, she's very interested in identity. in gender, in women's roles. And this piece, you know, which I typically, of course, would not use with younger audiences, to teach this with college students was exciting. They would go all day interpreting what was happening, how the pieces were evolving, and what were the relationships that they felt were being suggested in this piece. And like the Booker, any good teaching piece is one that you can spend a lot of time thinking about and exploring and unraveling together. And this one, again, is on a big salon wall on the first floor, celebrating works that were from the very beginnings of the museum, which we're having our 50th anniversary. So things from the late 60s and early 70s are on that wall, including Marisol. Okay, we get this. And again, this was installed last year in another gallery in the first floor, so you could see all 6 of them together. But again, looking at students, and I want you to look at this little blue face over here, which very much looks like it belongs to this cast resin face, but then reappears here, and what is involved and who is involved. And as I say, this was a huge, huge piece of interest, particularly when teaching college classes. Okay, our next artist is May Stevens, and she may or may not be known to you. She was born to a working class Boston family, and is known as an American feminist artist and an activist and an educator. And believe it or not, her exhibition was one of the first that was here in 1973 at the opening of the Johnson Art Museum. There was a May Stevens show. Her style is, I would associate it more with the pop art movement, bold, primary colors, a little bit flat, very much alluding to politics and history as well. She felt painting can only be political, and hers certainly was. She was really engaged with the civil rights movement, and actually had a 1964 exhibition called Freedom Riders, and the intro to the catalog of that show was written by Martin Luther King Jr. So you get some sense of, again, of her, you know, deep engagement with social justice issues. And again, many of her works connect with the civil rights movement and also protests against the Vietnam War. And the pieces that we've got, several pieces of hers. The one that's up at the moment is this piece, Big Daddy Paper Doll. And this piece, I don't know, again, if you have thoughts that you want to share about, does this suggest anything to you? Feel free if you wish to share an idea. This is, again, one of the richest teaching pieces for high school and college. Although no one knows what a paper doll is anymore. So you have to kind of explain the concept. Paper dolls, I think, are all virtual in this world. But of course, she has a central figure here. If you can see a white male with kind of a bullet head or almost a phallic head, smiling, suggests a teeny bit of, maybe looks a little bit like TR with Theodore Roosevelt, has on his lap, covering, of course, his genitals, this large bulldog. She had a very difficult and problematic relationship with her own father, who she called a misogynist and a racist. And so this is very much kind of a portrait of her father. And again, kind of an eerie smile on the figure's face. He has, as you can see, this figure, this white male, has outfits that obviously fit him perfectly and even fit his dog. And they are, of course, the executioner and a military figure, a police officer, and I'm assuming a butcher. Any thoughts about that? I'll treat you guys exactly like a class. Why does she select those? Any thoughts?
I think she didn't, I think she felt her father was authoritarian. It was pretty.
Absolutely. So the father is authoritarian.
And possibly abusive.
And possibly abusive. And possibly abusive. And again, think about this in terms of late 60s, early 70s, or I suppose you know, that would be a great question. What percentage of the military is white and male? I'm sure that has changed greatly over the last 40, 50, 60 years. But that idea that at that time, the white male fits comfortably into all these suits, all these occupations. Why include the butcher and the executioner?
Well, the Vietnam War,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
More. Yeah. Kind of interesting. Somebody in class the other day talked about the fact that on either side of the father figure are people who are in institutional roles that do involve violence, um, sanctioned roles of the military and the police. And then we've got people on the end, the bookends, the executioner and the butcher. More solitary figures, but kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. Only one with blood. As I say, needless to say, no one knows what a paper doll is. You got to stop and explain the whole paper doll concept when you're teaching this. The other question is, and I know you all will know the big daddy illusion, not just to her father, other connections when you hear that term.
well, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Exactly. You can't see that without girl eyes. And thinking about the concept of a big daddy, a Southern male white patriarch. So very much so. And I think so many layers and levels of association. She has another piece. So this one's up on the first floor at the moment. Beneath it is another cutout figure with different hats that it wears. So it's got a military helmet, executioner's hood, police helmet, and it's also got a Klansman's hood. So again, she sees this as all of a piece, all of a piece. And again, look at the way she's done it though, too. Bright, vivid colors, very flat, and text. With her, text is always important too, but really fascinating character. And again, a huge, important political voice. Really, really interesting. And I'll show you, there's one more of hers in the collection, Soho Women Artists. And again, also not just somebody who is involved in protesting Vietnam and supporting social justice and civil rights issues, but somebody who is really involved in encouraging and supporting other female artists of the time in their work and in their, trying to get attention for their work. But really intriguing. So Mae Stevens is one. Again, if you don't know her, you'll want to know her. So how about, does anybody know who this is? Anybody know? This is Cindy Sherman. And I'm guessing you have seen her photographs in various museums. She is by far the most well-known of the women in the little group that I'm talking about today. She has worked for over 4 decades in photography, and she has a very specific way of working. She transforms herself. She uses very elaborate props and wigs and makeup. She has a studio that looks like a prop set from a film site with, again, every kind of wig, every kind of makeup and drawers with different kinds of jewelry, and transforms herself into various characters and a huge wardrobe too. And always through many, many decades, she's been interested in identity and the ideas of celebrity and gender and the mass media and particularly how women are portrayed in the media. She's always interested too in experimenting, again, trying on identities and roles, again, just like an actress. And I love this quote. She said, "I wish I could treat every day as Halloween and get dressed up and go out in the world as some eccentric character." And of course, that's exactly what she's doing in her photography. And here, obviously, she is looking at one of her works, which is a portrait of her transformed. Often she works with a theme, and that theme might be, B movies, and then she would portray herself as movie heroines, or it might be society portraits, and then she'll work along in that theme. We've got several up at the moment, but one is a portrait of her actually as Mrs. Santa Claus. And here she is in her studio. Again, wigs, makeup, jewelry, necklaces, earrings, and all kinds of lights to transform her into these characters. And this is another one, again, that sense of you watch the film and this is one little still from a film, and you don't know this character that looks, I don't know, a little Monroe-ish or a little Kim Novak, something like that, where it's clearly there's a narrative, clearly there's a story, but we have one little image that suggests a much bigger story. Again, with the sunglasses down and the cigarette, and that's the second that she snaps. She's really, really intriguing figure. I think I got one, maybe one more. Yeah. Again, very clearly, something is happening. It is posed, it is constructed, but it's as if it is part of a much bigger story in Cindy Sherman's world. So she has several works in the collection, and at the moment there's a couple of them up on 2L in the study gallery teaching space. Let's see if I got it. Okay, next artist, and this is very exciting. This is Celia Vasquez Yui. As I said, we have two shows at the moment, Nydia Blas and Celia Vasquez Yui, that are two of the three big special exhibitions that are traveling shows, so they won't be here that long. And this one is just extended, so it is up through December, I think it's December 16th, but about mid-December. She came, about 4 weeks ago to Cornell with her daughter, gave a lecture and did a studio workshop, which was absolutely fascinating. She is a Peruvian potter. She identifies as both an artist and an activist and a politician and an indigenous rights, I guess activist would be the best word. And what she's done here at the museum is to create this big, I guess you could call it a bestiary. Let's see if I've got a better, no, I don't think I've got a better, a bestiary of animals. So here you've got some 50 different animals. They're all coil built and they are all open pit fired. And she has got animals, obviously, of the Amazon, many of them endangered. So you've got top and center, a big jaguar. You've got some deer, capybaras and tapirs, and caimans and tortoises and piranhas. And of course, who doesn't love, armadillo, armadillo family there. And what she does is something that she learned from her mother. And it is kind of a matrilineal progression of knowledge. So, and she works with her daughter. So women are, in this culture, the creators and the passers of knowledge from one generation to the next about their creations, about their ceramic work. So in her culture, the Shipibo culture, each artist has a very distinctive pattern. And I think you can see on this big anaconda, the pattern is called kene, and the pattern suggests both a kind of healing of the world and of nature, and again, a distinctive, almost a signature of that artist and of that family lineage, which is really interesting. So the animals themselves do not have the patterns that the animal would actually have on them. Instead, they have these kene patterns, which are really intriguing. Let me show you more. Yeah, and right in front, so all of these animals are lined up, and then in front of these three little platforms is this huge anaconda on its own platform, who is seen as the mother of this animal council, which is really interesting. And it's arranged, here's my question, why would you arrange it like this? when you go into the galleries, this is what you see. Why would you arrange it like this?
Carol, where would be the anaconda in this?
Yeah, the anaconda is kind of right in front. It's a few feet in front of the little armadillo family.
Oh,
on-
Okay.
So that the anaconda is seen in her eyes as the mother figure, kind of almost guarding the rest of the figures. But they are all lined up to face the viewer, many with open mouths and kind of alert ears, and almost in a little, what she calls almost like a congress. You know, why would you do that?
They are almost accusing the viewer.
Yeah, I think so too. They are all making eye contact with us. You're right, accusing us and saying, you know, what is your responsibility for my, you know, my environment and my home? But they
Mm.
absolutely face us, and in such kind of kind of a forceful way. And also you'll notice predator next to prey here too. So they have kind of joined together to face us and force us to look at them. It's really interesting. There is another piece that I can't show you on the Zoom, but there is a soundtrack that goes with the exhibition as well, a soundscape that's chants from an ayahuasca ceremony of ancestral healers. So when you walk in, you're hearing that healing chant and looking at them, and you're kind of transported into another world, I'm gonna have to say. Some of these, I think 2 or 3 of them will stay at the museum, hopefully, and become part of the permanent collection. But it's kind of thrilling to have all 50 of them at the moment. She also, to tell you more about her, she came and did a little workshop, which was fascinating. The clay she gets from a river in her area of Peru. That clay is then mixed with ground up pots that are from other generations. So you might have your ancestors' pot that is ground up and added to her clay very, very intentionally. The fact that the present pot I'm making also has something from the past literally in it. She said, not only is it symbolic that I have got my great grandmother's pot within my pot, but it actually strengthens the clay itself. So that's intriguing. Of course, she makes all of her own, the paints and the glazes. These are not fired in a kiln, which would make them much, much stronger. They are pit fired outside, so they're rather delicate. And then there's almost like a little varnish on them. They're far more delicate than something that would be fired in a kiln. So as the registrar found out when unpacking them, yeah. So they're really, really fascinating. And I would just encourage you to come see this, because it has to be experienced in person. And one capybara doesn't really have the same impact as 50 animals looking at you, and then to hear the soundtrack. So I would encourage you to come and look at this. Any other thoughts about this?
Carol, does the varnish go on after they come out, after they're fired?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's not a result of the firing.
No, at
Okay.
least so her gallerist told us that. Yeah, that the varnish goes on afterwards. And the registrar, as he was moving these, said, again, they're very delicate. And sometimes the weight of the piece has actually sunk into the platform. So when they were being moved, you know, a paw was separated. So a conservator actually had to come and kind of repair that. So we're really careful when we're teaching it, and tend to line people up or put something down on the floor so folks will sit, you know, students will sit down, because it's a very delicate piece. Let's see what else. Any other thoughts about this? I encourage you, this is up, as I say, till mid-December. And as soon as, you know, classes end, it'll be a lot easier to get in here and to park too. So I hope you will come and see this in person, because it's quite exciting and very thrilling. Any other thoughts on this one? Okay, let's look at a couple more. All right, Jane Hammond is one of my favorites. She is a printmaker and a painter and a sculptor and a mixed media artist, and she had a big show here. Oh gosh, years ago, maybe 15 years ago. That was one of my favorite shows we've ever had. She is interested in so many different things. You will see images from nature throughout her works. You'll see, Victorian advertising and images from children's books and fashion illustrations, all kinds of things. And her interests, I think, are encyclopedic. So you might see phrenology and astrology and little diagrams of knots and magic tricks and, again, Victorian ads and shadow puppets. All of these things are part of her kind of vocabulary. She also likes, we have several works in the collection of hers, and one of my favorites, actually, this is, there she is in the studio. This Love Laughs is really just odd. There's something kind of surrealistic about them. They seem to also be visual puns, but she loves older images. And you can see she loves nothing more than giving you like a Renaissance optical illusion and, and then taking something from a Japanese print or an Indonesian shadow puppet and changing up the scale, and just making it unexpected to give you a kind of a Renaissance hallway, but then put a, huge cat in the middle of it or a hand. There's something very surrealistic about her approach. She also likes visual puns, and one of our favorite works ever to teach with is this, which is often in the lobby, the little lobby of the, I guess, and it's a huge, huge piece that kind of goes on one big wall, and it is, I don't know if you can see, it replicates what would be a 3-ring binder or just a notebook. And you cannot turn these pages, of course, but it looks to be, it does have its little rings. And what she's done is to create, and she has a series of these, a kind of a, I think you would call it a rebus, or a little bit of a picture puzzle. And the question is, and this is, we do this a lot to talk about the idea of decoding art and puzzling through it. And of course, this is a winner. Even if kids don't know who is alluded to, just breaking the code is such a great symbol. And I don't know, can you tell if you look at just the left side of the page and break that into a code? Don't look across, just look at the left side. Can you tell what words she's trying to get you to say? If you look at the girl in blue.
Is the top one Dolly?
Yep, it is Dolly. Yep. And then the middle image. What's the middle image? And this is hard because, again, here's an image from maybe the late 20s. So that is kind of puzzling to younger students.
They're hard to see.
Like a New Year's party,
Yeah, New Year's party. And then you take off the Y.
Dolly.
So it's
heart.
Dolly part.
Yeah. And then the last 2 images, what do they have in common? And what are they? And again, nobody knows what these are anymore.
Dolly
Is that a camera on the left?
It's television.
It's TV, yeah.
TV
Yeah.
and hymns or
And cushion.
Pin cushion. Nobody has a pin cushion anymore.
Yeah,
What do
Dolly.
they have in common? The last 2.
ON, so Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton, yeah.
Exactly. So they have the last 2 letters in common, and then you put the whole thing together and you've got Dolly Parton. So
That's clever.
and she just, I just think it's such a fun way to think about the idea that looking at art is breaking a code. And again, doesn't matter. People actually, kids do know who Dolly Parton is, but most of the people that she uses in these rebuses are what she's got, Marilyn Monroe and Dizzy Gillespie. And, most of those, I would have to say, people do not know. Young people do not know.
I was going to say, my first looking at it, I was going to say Dolly Madison.
Dolly Madison. Okay. Nobody knows Dolly Madison either, Betsy. Yeah. Sadly, maybe as a sweet cake, but
Because the Maddie and then the Y,
Mhm.
the mad scene in the middle with
yes.
a Y.
Well, that's good. That's good. It works. It works. Now, I know no one will know. Second page, another artist, Dada artist, but I don't know. Again, no kid ever knows this, but it doesn't matter because they really want to crack the code. That's what it matters. And what's fascinating is she will give you an image of something that doesn't look like that anymore. The television does not look like that anymore. She will give you an image from the 40s or 50s or 20s. So you have to decode that and say, oh yeah, that's what that is. Yeah, extra credit if anybody can figure out the second page.
Oh, my goodness.
So we got a mask, right?
Mark,
Yeah, good. Yeah,
P-
M-A.
P-O, oh no, H-O, Mark, H-O-D,
Yeah, think about, you
D-U-C.
got Mark, but that second image, think about a telephone.
Oh, T-E, oh, E-L,
Oh, Market.
E-L-D-L, E-L-D-U-C,
To solve a puzzle.
H-A, yeah.
Yeah. So Marcel is the first. So we got the M-A for the
Marceau.
So it has to be Marcel.
Oh, yeah.
Marcel, and you got the bottom.
Duchamp.
Yep, Marcel Duchamp. Absolutely. And again, this takes some time. This takes some time with elementary. But again, that idea of breaking a code and playing with language, a lot of these artists will put in a text or a code or something they want you to interact with. Many of them don't want you to just look, they want you to puzzle through it, which I like. I like that idea. And I love Jane Hammond. I want another Jane Hammond show. And we just had another piece of hers up on the first floor that was kind of, she'd made herself into a golden sarcophagus, but pulling in all of these kind of Victorian 19th and 20th century images all over instead of hieroglyphs. So that was
Okay, so Carol,
Yeah.
I'm showing, I'm putting myself out there asking a stupid question. Why that title?
Oh, that's a good question. I Betsy, you got me. I do not know. I think that title, I think it refers to, and nobody, I think this is so obscure. I think it refers to one of Marcel Duchamp's artworks. And I think it's a pun about one of the titles of his artworks.
But why just that? Why would they have like the first one being, Dolly Parton or Dolly Madison, and
Yeah.
then the title only be about the second page?
You got me. You got me. I don't have an easy answer for that. I wish I did. But sometimes the titles you think, now how in the world, how does that relate? But I do think he does have a famous artwork with Bachelor in the title. That's the only thing I can think. So,
Is it possible that we're wrong about the first page?
oh no, we're definitely talking about Dolly Parton. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't- I've,
Oh, the song, Dolly Parton song, "I Will Always Love You."
Yeah, I was just
She
gonna
wrote
say
it.
that. That's just what I was gonna say.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
There's
I will always love that puts the two
Those
together.
bachelors, it combines them.
That's
Yep.
true. Brilliant. Okay, see, you've just taught me something. Okay, two more folks to look at today. One is Leslie Dill. And I'm sorry, Leslie is misspelled here. She's an EY. She is a fascinating character. Like Jane Hammond, she loves language and text, and she does everything. So she makes prints and sculpture and photography and performance art and clothing. She uses cloth and paper and wire and foil and bronze. She just does it. She's just a very, very intriguing character. This is the piece in our collection I just love. And it's called the Poem Dress of Circulation. And it's a little teeny, well, not teeny, but not person size dress made of paper. And can you see what look like little tributaries on here? I mean, you could look at them as, I don't know, again, like tributaries or rivers, but they also look like veins. And you can see a heart up at the top. Can you see that? And then the words kind of spilling down the tributaries. And one of the many, many fascinating things about her is that she is focused on, devoted to, inspired by Emily Dickinson's poetry. And she said her 40th birthday, her mother gave her a volume of the Dickinson's poems. And from then on, and I think she's obviously got a bigger, broader reach of her work, but many, many, many of her works, she took the poems and then translated those into other media. Or it could be something like this, poem dress of circulation. Others, she has something she calls like a poetry spill. So it was a half of a figure just from the waist down, and then that was upside down, and then coming out of it were words in metal. Some of them have been sewn or, printed or, woven, but all of it in that part of her life is devoted to Emily Dickinson's poetry, which is, again, another really fascinating idea. So this is a really delicate little piece, but it does come out a lot for classes because it's a great piece to teach with. And I think I got one more. Leslie Dill. This is another cool inspiration. And again, this was a woman who was I think a 19th century kind of preacher. And this is some of her words. And this interest, she's interested too in faith and spirituality and women's roles and identity. But I love the fact that she doesn't just do one thing. She is interested in fiber and printmaking and photography and these big installations. So it's not like, boom, I'm just seeing a painting or a photograph on a wall. She kind of incorporates everything. So she's another one. I'd like a Leslie Dill show too. But one more artist to share with you, and that's our friend Nydia Blas. So Nydia Blas, of course, is from Ithaca. And some of you I know her. She went to BJM and LACS, and now she is a professor at Spelman College in Atlanta. And she has an extraordinary career. So she is not just a college professor. She also has exhibitions all over the country, including right here at the Johnson. She also does commercial work isn't the right word, but commissioned work. So at any point, the New York Times could call and say, we're doing a profile of the poet laureate of the United States, was Tracy K. Smith. Or she said she tends to specialize in women of color. And she showed us when she was here a portrait she'd done of the Attorney General in Georgia who's working on the interference case with Trump.
Fannie Willis.
So she took her portrait for the New York Times profile. So she's got this interesting kind of triple. She is a teacher. She is an active artist, but she also is, in the news too. And again, doing portraits connected to profiles of really important and significant people. So she's really intriguing character, very vibrant teacher, and a teacher. She gave a wonderful lecture last Thursday, but somebody who just has a kind of a radiance, and very few people, as you know, I think can effectively teach a college student and a fourth grader. And she did. So I was most impressed. The thing that she's done in this show, and this is one of the images from the show too, is the whole point of it. She was asked to look at a series of albums that are held by Cornell and the Cornell Library. And these are family albums from Black families from the 1860s to the 1980s. And they're, again, part of a collection. And she was asked to respond to those albums by creating a kind of a contemporary Ithaca album. So what she did was look through those albums, and they were, people's picnics and graduations and weddings and, posing in their porch. And then she often took those very same poses and settings, thought about those, and then kind of quoted those in Ithaca. She came 2 different summers and worked primarily with people, I think all with people she knew, starting with her own family. And again, some of these may be folks known to you, like the Malones or the McBeans. And as her practice, again, she created something really kind of intimate. and unusual. She created something too, which I think is most unusual, images of Black men as fathers, of such care and sensitivity and kind of sweetness. And that's really a theme throughout the show too. And I've got another one. This is the last one. I love this, Rosanna Malone. And on the right, you'll see an image that was from a photo album from, I don't know, maybe the 60s or the 70s. You can see this is an amateur photographer, and that person doesn't even have a head in the photo album, but this image really captured her. And she recreated that in a way, again, with this bold t-shirt, even modeled on the t-shirt in the earlier image, with the red shorts, with the bold pose in front of the car, in front of the house. So throughout this, again, she's paying tribute to this tradition of family albums, but really creating a new kind of family album, one that draws very much, of course, exclusively on Ithaca, but also on her family and loved ones, and just creating images that just aren't like anything I don't think I've ever seen before. So definitely come see that. Show is up till January 7th. And I guarantee you, you will know people within that exhibition as well. But
Carol,
yes.
my kids went to Central School. My older daughter's the same age. I just looked up I thought I recognized the name. I think she was the same grade as Megan through Central School. I recognized the name. Yeah.
Good. And some of you may know her family. Her brother Brandon is our contact at GIAC, and so I'm sure you may have crossed paths with some of her other family members. And I believe she said, the niece of Beverly J. Martin. So she talked a lot about Beverly J. Martin, her impact on Nydia's life, her encouragement of her art. And she also said, this is very moving, 7th grade. She took, I think she did photography at LACS. She said that was the spark. She knew from that moment that was what she was going to do. And she never turned back. She never turned back. So a really exciting figure, and somebody who I think you'll want to see the show. And again, I'm sure many of you have connections with her and the people in the images too. So that will be up again through, I think it's January 7th. So I am happy to answer any questions that you might have. I hope that you'll come and see all of these, particularly the two that are going away, the Nydia Blas show and the Celia Vasquez Yui show. But the others, we will always have, fascinating and different images up in the galleries from all kinds of different artists. But I hope these are new to you and people that maybe you've never seen or explored before. So hope that you'll come back and look at those in person. Anybody have any questions? Anybody? Okay. Not, I know that I'll get with Leslie, and at some point we will go to ancient China, maybe even in early January.
Thanks very much.
My great.
Thank you, Carol. I'm definitely going. I haven't been to the museum in a while. And I have no excuse. I have the right parking permit. I can just drive right up and park close by. Yeah.
Absolutely. But always just check the website, because we now have student guards, keep
Yeah.
that in mind, that sometimes those student guards, if they're on break, then there's a slightly different change in hours. when we're breaks. I'm here, but they often have a reduced guard force during those times.
Has the elevator been repaired yet?
Not as of this morning, but
Ah,
I'm a stairmaster at the moment. I'm hoping one of these days, but no, the elevator has not.
So it's only things on the first floor that you'd see. If you can.
Those are both on 2L. So you could come in the little lobby and take the little elevator down one floor and go to see Nydia Blas and the Celia Vasquez Yui. And yes, but get to 5 is a commitment. Commitment.
Good for us.
Carol, does anyone at the Johnson ever do tours of the storage room areas?
Boy, I don't know if I feel like Frank used to do that in the past. I mean, they're pretty tight in terms of And so I'm guessing that maybe he did do that in the past, but I don't know that anybody has done it recently.
Okay. I just was curious because I think people would be curious what's in there and why it's there in there as opposed to out here.
And with 40,000 things, most of them are always in storage.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's off-site too. I can't remember if it's in Elmira, but most of the
Oh,
stuff
okay.
on-site, some painting storage and photo storage is on-site, but a lot of it is off.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Carol. We really appreciate this. We feel like we've got, such an expert. Just
Very happy to do it. Very happy to do it. And I'll just look forward to our next adventure. Ancient China will be coming up.
okay.
Thank
Thank you.
Carol.
Happy holidays.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Are we here? Okay, but-